the Guardian of the Worlds presents The Diary of Sot, The Dawn of an Odyssey.
Enladag, the day 15th of the month of Epiphanes of the year 41st after the Universal War. My dearest diary, today. I need to confess something to you. Recent events have led me to consider things I had not even thought of before, but now they make me question many of the things I am experiencing. However, to understand how I have come to this reflection, I need to explain what has happened to us in the previous days. Since I arrived here almost a year ago, my days have been routine, barely allowing me to leave this facility where we are. It is also true that this area seems to be the only one where intelligent life exists, although it is fair to say that we are not on a planet that stands for its grandiosity. I know this because, against all odds, a few weeks ago, Rakt came to the training yard in the morning, as usual. However, unlike the rest of the days, I could see something different on his face, as if something was bothering him. As soon as that formidable man entered the area where we were waiting for him, my three mates and I positioned ourselves opposite to him, and he stopped in front of the gates that led to the interior of that place. Usually, after this, he would have requested us to close our eyes and start a brief warm-up before beginning our training session. However, that expression we all could see on his face and the fact that he stood there for a few moments gazing at the blue floor of the yard made me understand that there was something he needed to tell us, and it seemed as if he was searching for the right words to do so. During the few seconds that deafening silence dominated the yard, the four of us exchanged bewildered looks, not understanding what was going through that individual's mind. For a moment I fantasized about the possibility that our enemies had finally found us. If that were the case, I could finally confront that monster that took the lives of my family and all those innocent lives that dwelled in my beloved Baldus. That idea made me realize that, despite my progress, I still had much to learn to face that creature. But if that were true, I would give my life only to finish off that monster. Finally, as if he had already found the appropriate way to convey what he had to tell us, Rakt raised his face and directed a look of sadness and concern towards us, which truly caught my attention, as in all the months I had been there, I had never seen him with such an expression. "Good morning," began he politely. "I would love to start today like any other session, but I am afraid that it shall not be possible for the following days or weeks." After those words, the disciple stopped as if he could barely continue his narration. On my mates' faces, I could see the same sense of confusion that I harbored, as we could hardly understand what had caused our sessions to be interrupted so drastically. "Is there something we should be worried about?" asked Yakren, trying to understand what Arus's disciple wanted to tell us. "Yesterday, it took place an extraordinary session at the request of one of my colleagues," explained Rakt. "In this session, the request was to send you all on different missions throughout our world so that you can start training for your future missions." "Not a bad idea," commented Ish. "If our mission in the future is to find the gems that Arus doesn't have yet, it would be beneficial for us to go on training missions to get ready for whatever may happen." The truth was that Ish's reasoning was quite logical. Just as troops in regiments must train for emergencies, we should prepare ourselves for all possible scenarios we may encounter during our future missions. However, for me, it could be a problem, as I was barely capable of fighting in close combat and could not control the power of my amulet. "Certainly, it is not a bad idea," added the disciple. "What bothers me is that a report has been requested detailing the strengths and weaknesses of each one of you." "And what is the intended purpose of this document?" asked I, not fully understanding its intentionality. "I guess it is required because, in this way, we can focus your training on strengthening your weaknesses." "That doesn't seem logical," exclaimed I, upset, not fully comprehending the reason behind such a decision. "Why should we focus on our weaknesses when we can train our strengths and become much stronger together?" In this moment of reflection, I understand that the mentality that Father instilled in us was responsible for my reaction. He had always infused in us the view that it was not helpful to strengthen our weaknesses. He had always believed it was better to leverage one's strengths and find someone to complement the other's weaknesses. For that reason, I thought that even though I was the weakest of the group, I could still help my mates in some other way while they would dedicate themselves to fighting. However, at that moment, I was unaware that something was escaping my understanding. What you are saying would make sense if everyone were going together on each mission. But the problem is that, as soon as the Master takes the decision, each one of you shall be sent on a different mission. What are you talking about? Inquired Yakren, quite upset by this unexpected information the disciple had just given us. The Master has several scenarios in mind to retrieve the universal gems, but he needs these missions we have prepared for you to decide which plan to follow, explained Racht. But one thing I can assure you is that, in future, the Master wants each one of you to go after a different gem. What madness, exclaimed the veteran warrior, unexpectedly interrupting Racht's narrative. Isn't he aware of who makes up this group? There are 4 of us. There is an entire army out there. You saw it yourself in the attack on Baldis, added he, pointing at me with his hand, raising his voice. Is he crazy enough to send a kid like Sot to fight alone? I understand your concern, but I assure you the Master will not ask you to undertake anything beyond your capability, replied the disciple with that fraternal tone that characterized him when he wanted to make us understand something. After those words, none of us knew what else to add to that conversation, which gradually was getting tenser, as Yakren continued with a furrowed brow, while Ish and Arus looked at each other without saying a word. I suppose that having lived their entire lives as soldiers, this type of mission and training was quite usual for them, which I imagine was the reason for their silence. As for me, I was genuinely conflicted. On the one hand, I understood this could be an opportunity to improve the few skills I had acquired during my brief but intense stay here. However, I was worried about the type of missions we would have to carry out in this new training, which made me doubt if I was prepared enough to embark on that adventure with my mates. If you have got nothing else to object to, indicated the young disciple again, it would better for us to head to our first mission as soon as possible. Just like this, you want us to go on our first mission? Intervened Arus in the conversation for the first time, visibly dissatisfied as she gestured with her hands. Have you got anything in your chambers that could help you overcome the challenges you are about to face? Replied Racht, casting an ironic smile at our mate. Without further objections, the disciple asked us to approach him to embark on what would become a bizarre mission. If someone had told me that in the small and seemingly peaceful Olympics, there were types of creatures and landscapes that we encountered on that mission, I would never have been able to believe it. Those monsters we had to deal with and the terrain we had to cross to reach our objective,